Harare. Tune into the beat.
Capitalk 100.4 FM, your source for news, business, sports, fashion, and more.
Experience the pulse of Harare's culture and lifestyle.
Capitalk 100.4 FM, Harare's top radio station.
Join the conversation with Zimbabwe's top personalities.
Subscribe now for fresh and infotainment content daily.
Capital 100.4 FM, Harare's heartbeat.
Didn't graduate. I guess I blew it. You couldn't advise him anything. He would just look at you and say, so who do you think you are?
We were just like really spoiled.
And then they just give me the receipt and I'd pay.
The guy walks in one day and then he says that he wants to make a movie.
He was blowing the money.
There was just like this habit that he had where as soon as he got money, it was gone.
I just didn't have the skills or the experience.
This money, I could see it disappear so fast.
This is The Mint live on ZTN Prime, your sneak peek into the world of business, finance and economies. We're coming to you from Zimbabwe's capital, Harare. I'm Ibn Mabunda. Let's get started. Now, coming up, the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe has kept its benchmark interest rate steady at 35% in its mid-term monetary policy review, reaffirming a tight monetary stance to consolidate recent macroeconomic gains. The central bank is projecting annual inflation to end the year at 30%, which it says delivers a positive real return of 5%. Governor Dr. John Mushawan emphasized the focus remains on price and exchange rate stability through reserve money targeting, not the direct management of the exchange rate. The bank maintained the foreign currency surrender requirement for exporters at 30% and kept deposit interest rates unchanged despite calls for lower charges and looser credit conditions. Foreign reserves, meanwhile, have grown significantly from $285 million in April 2024 to over $730 million by June 2025, helping cushion the local currency. Now we speak to experts right here on The Mint. The Mint will be right back. Don't go anywhere. You're watching The Mint as we come to you from Zimbabwe's capital, Harare. Now, just yesterday, the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe did release its mid-term monetary policy review. And of course, for that, we are joined in studio by Mugove Chinyere, an economist, as well as Natasha Mutasa, a financial analyst. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to The Mint.
Thank you, Eben.
Fantastic. I will start by picking your mind, your sentiment on the monetary policy review that was issued yesterday.
Thank you. Basically, the monetary policy that was released yesterday, I think it's a very good policy document to begin with, because what they're actually targeting, and they have actually managed to note on the improvements and the gains that have been noted on the monetary policy, basing on the previous policy. And my own analysis of this policy is that we are actually gravitating in the right direction towards economic stability, towards inflation targeting, towards the much needed and much desired economic growth. Therefore then, by probably maintaining the bank policy rate at 35, I strongly believe that we are gravitating in the right direction, as probably this will actually help set the benchmark for other lenders, and also it actually will ensure that the transmission mechanism works perfectly well.
Right, I will relay the same question to you, Natasha. Your sentiment on the mid-term monetary policy review.
All right. I think just to add on to what is already said, just another perspective. Yes, it's a very good document indeed, but I think if you're really coming to reality, it seems like they're also trying to create this artificial market where things are stabilized and everything is working well. Because let's say this, they can't say that the ZIG has been adopted by people, whereas the other ones, we have limited the supply, intentionally limiting it, and then there's now an artificial, to say in quotes, an artificial demand for the ZIG. So now they're acting as if people are in need of the ZIG instead of the USD. But it's just that normally people have a tendency of wanting to use the local currency in the supermarkets, or normally it's in the supermarkets, and to maintain or store the USD for things such as rentals and fuel. So you see that that's why people are in search of this. So my understanding of this is that they are trying to create an artificial market by giving us a very good document where they're engineering everything, and it's not the market that's really in play in this situation in our country. Thank you.
Right, let's dig deeper where this document is concerned. And you mentioned the aspect of reality, or rather what's obtaining on the ground. Let's get into the teensy-weенsies. Inflation targeted or expected to 1 to 30% from 95% in the month.
At times we have to be very realistic, considering what is actually obtaining in the market. Targeting from 90%, a reduction from 90% to 30% is a mammoth task. Why do I say it's a mammoth task on inflation? But let's not also forget that whilst we are focusing our efforts on inflation, we are also affecting aggregate demand. We are sort of stifling the much needed investment whether in the financial sector, in the commercial sector, in the manufacturing sector, in the mining sector. Because when we target one aspect, obviously it has ripple effects. Therefore, the issue of targeting, why do I say so? Like I mentioned earlier, by maintaining the bank policy at 35%, it means literally nothing has changed. And according to the transmission mechanism, the rates that are obtaining in the market are the same, and then loans and savings, the rates are maintained at the same rate. Therefore, then, if it affects their rates of borrowing, they can't borrow much to actually grow their businesses, to actually grow the economy. Therefore, when the economy does not grow at a much bigger rate, it means one thing: people are forced to get resources elsewhere. Therefore, the target of reducing inflation to 30% may be very difficult.
Right.
But if we employ the necessary framework, it may be possible.
Right. 35% interest rates have been maintained at that. What's your mind around that subject?
Okay, I think having a 35% policy rate and also incorporating the inflation that we just projected of 30%, it also results in the creation of a real interest rate of 5%. And this is a good approach because it creates confidence in the. It creates confidence. It restores confidence back into the market, whereby we have people and thrive despite tight credit conditions.
The governor is quite emphatic that maintaining a tight monetary stance will stabilize the ZIG and the US dollar exchange rate. What is your sentiment around that?
Okay. First, by maintaining a tight monetary policy, focusing on stabilizing the ZIG and US dollar exchange rate, like my colleague mentioned earlier, this is a managed exchange rate. It's not really determined by the market forces of supply and demand. Therefore, then, maintaining a tight monetary policy, we are fixing the exchange rate. And then when we are fixing the exchange rate at a particular rate, it simply implies that the real dynamics are not obtaining But however, on the contrary, maintaining that fixed exchange rate is actually good in the sense that when people are in the market, they use money for various reasons.
I've got to make a follow-up. What, in your opinion, would be the right panacea to exchange rate management in the economy?
Okay, fine. Currently, we are using the floating exchange rate, whereby we use the willing buyer, willing seller, right? So the right aspect is a combination of both.
Is that not what's already in place at this particular point?
Exactly. That's where I'm gravitating towards. The right mix is we combine both. We manage, we float. And then when we have a managed floating exchange rate, it means other aspects, like your speculative reasons, are managed. Then we are also maintaining our growth targets by actually having a fixed exchange rate. And then we are also managing inflation. And we are also overall managing aggregate demand.
Right, Mugobe is quite happy with the exchange rate regime that we have in place. Natasha, how do you read?
Okay, I think I'll just highlight on the long-term risk that could be there due to this tight monetary.
In addition to that, if you may also
Yes.
highlight what you think should and could be done.
Should and could be done. All right. As I have alluded, I would just like to advise on the long-term risk that if these tight conditions persist, this could also result in a stiffer investment where we have reduction.
Allow me to come in there.
Okay.
Where the exchange rate, specifically the management of the exchange rate regime that we have in place.
Okay.
What's your sentiment? 1, 2, how can it be enhanced?
What's my sentiment?
Right.
I think just to agree with Mugobe, I think what we are doing already is okay because we are on a willing buyer, willing seller basis, where we are believing that the market is stable. So it's willing buyer, willing seller, but we also, like we highlighted before, that this is a managed exchange rate. So to some extent, it's all regulated, despite them saying it's on a willing buyer and willing seller platform. Thank you.
Right, you mentioned the aspect of the unavailability of this domestic currency, and yet the central bank will insist that they will keep it as is. How do you read? And also, you will hear statistics to the effect that there is an increased adoption of the ZIG, but you find that's predominant in the formal sector. What about the informal sector?
Well, the informal sector is only using the USD currency. They have no confidence in the local currency. I think this is also given the history of how hyperinflation has affected the country, and also the lack of, even from a layman's perspective, there's the lack of trust in the local currency, where people have once believed or trusted in the system. They've invested their money in local currency. They have invested, but then you wake up the next day and this money has no value. Also, informal sector, most of the things are imported into the nation. So in order to facilitate the procurement process, you need the United States dollars. So for the informal sector, I would say they're still standing on using the USD value as a store value, and also because to make payments, for most of them, they are paying rentals in town, they are paying rentals for stands wherever they are doing their businesses, and these are being charged also in USD, even for fuel. So you even hear layman people saying that until I can pay rentals in ZIG, until I can pay for my fuel in ZIG, until I can pay for the most basic needs, I will still continue to charge or also only accept the USD. So I think, yes, if they maintain it like that in the formal sector, probably to work, because the formal sector is access to different, so they have access to different provisions where they can use the local currency. But for informal sector, it would be difficult, as most of the things are based on importation. Thank you.
And yet, when you look at the foreign currency reserves, they're now up to over $700 million from about $300 million when this new currency was launched. How important is that?
Okay, fine. You know, an increase in foreign reserves is actually a good thing for an economy. Right. When we increase our reserves, we are also unlocking capital for local investments. We are also beneficiating the local industry. And then increase in foreign reserves are mainly attributable to export surrender requirements, as the policy said that they are going to maintain the export surrender
Are you
requirements.
happy with that surrender requirement?
I'm happy and not happy for two reasons. Okay.
When you draw the dichotomy.
Okay, fine. All right. The happy part. Right. Increasing or maintaining the export surrender requirements at 30%. Actually, number one, it's good for local investments. It's good to increase the forex reserves. Right. Every nation has to have forex reserves to procure the necessary requirements, be they medicines, be they capital investments into the country. So having a good reserve in terms of forex will help the local industry grow, will also help improve our position. Then the cons, obviously, number one, will become forex flights. It's very easy for someone to export to Zambia and then go and open a settlement account in Zambia. Whosoever they exported to in Zambia is going to pay into a Zambian account, and then whatever has been exported, a small chunk will come to Zimbabwe. And then we are losing the much needed forex. And then obviously we will see the re-emergence of the parallel market where these monies can be traded, or illicit or underhand deals, just to make sure that this surrender requirement is not met. And then it has an effect on the exporter. It reduces their profitability. It reduces their margins. Because if someone has procured whatever they are exporting, let's say they are exporting some finished products from Zimbabwe, be they minerals, be they what, and then the resources that they employed into the production were denominated in US dollars mainly, and then they're exporting, and then 30% is remaining with the monetary authorities. That on its own affects profitability, and then it stifles the export sector. At the end of the day, it affects the overall balance of payment.
Time for us to take a quick breather. When we come back, we explore the other aspects of the monetary policy and how it links with the fiscal policy of Zimbabwe. The Mint will be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Dental checkups, experiments, games.
The mixture is making bubbles and the bubbles have changed color. Our balloon has been filled by carbon dioxide.
We have it all right here on Happy Sprouts. Catch us exclusively on ZTN Prime, DSTV channel 294.
You're watching The Mint as we come to you from Zimbabwe's capital, Harare. I have Mugove, an economist, as well as Natasha, a financial analyst, and we are crunching the implications of the monetary policy mid-term review, which was issued on Thursday by the Reserve Bank Governor, Dr. John Mushayavano. Right now, picking up from where we left off, there is an indication here. I want Natasha to respond to this one. ZIG usage in the national payment systems has risen from 26% to 40%. Is this a strong indicator of de-dollarization taking root?
I don't think so. Yes, there's an increase in the usage, but have you looked at where it's being used? If you were to go to the bank today, let's look at the servings. How many of the servings are denominated in the local currency? It's mostly being used for transaction, whereby once I receive it as my salary, I'm going to the supermarket, I'm using it. It comes back again. I do the same thing. I'm not storing it I'm not using it as a store of value. So I would say that it's not really an approach towards de-dollarization. Whereas if we have more of our investments, more of our savings, they're all in USD, then I would say no, we are not going towards the de-dollarization, because like I've been alluding before, we still do not have faith. We still do not trust in the system enough to have our currency or the store value in the local currency, which is the Zimbabwe gold.
Right. What's your assessment of efforts to synchronize the monetary policy as well as the fiscal policy?
Okay, fine. Synchronization of the two, the overall objective that we are pursuing as a nation, number one, is growth. Number two, economic stability. Right. So, in trying to synchronize this, I'll start with the fiscal policy. Right. When we are talking of the fiscal policy, we are just talking of our government spending and taxation, mainly. So, an increase in government spending unlocks value, whilst any increase in taxation locks value. Therefore, then, if we increase government spending, it means that we are spending on our public goods, we are spending on investment, we are spending on the necessary facilities that we may need to build. And then when we are playing with our taxation, if we increase our taxes, it means corporates, or the firms, should I say, are unable to maintain their high rates of production. We are sort of stifling aggregate supply. And when we stifle aggregate supply, the laws of supply and demand chip in. Therefore, if supply is on the low, right, obviously demand for the few commodities will rise. Then when we increase the demand for the few commodities, obviously we are going to affect the very inflation that we are trying to control. Therefore, coming to the monetary policy now, the simple thing is that we are targeting our exchange rate and we are targeting our money supply. Unfortunately, since we do not have a currency of our own that is properly functioning, that is readily available, most of our products, most of our inputs into production are US dollar denominated. We have sovereignty of the monetary policy, so to say. Whatever happens to the US dollar, whether in America or whatever, it's imported into Zimbabwe. So that will lead me to obviously to touch on the de-dollarization. Right.
Let me jump in there. The tight monetary policy is being criticized by players within the private sector as restrictive. You look at the 35% interest rates in place and several other mechanisms which the private sector of the economy is saying is affecting the productive sector, made it easier for the productive sectors of the economy.
Okay, I think from the perspective of by tightening the monetary reserves, so them having a 35%, in another perspective, this very same private sector people who are complaining, it encourages them to have long-standing investments in the banks where they know that they're going to get a return of that, so they are encouraged more to deposit. But you find also those that are complaining, I think, is in terms of where you're trying to transact, you're also trying to conduct your business, the interest that are being charged even when you ask for loans and all these things. So I think I'm in agreement with the Arabs that they should continue to maintain the 35% policy rate.
Right, let's talk about the charges. Charges in Zimbabwe are very much on the high side when you compare with our regional counterparts. And some would argue that that's seeing the increase in terms of informal transactions. If I need to move, say, $10,000 from myself to you, Natasha, instead of sending it via the bank, I'm finding it more convenient for me to just carry my $10,000. I give it to you because I know that there will not be any tax that's coming after my $10,000. There won't be any bank charges that's being charged by FBC, by CBZ, by POSB, or any other player for that matter. What's your take?
Okay, my take on that is that in as much as we all want to advocate for less charges when it comes to bank charges, you find that I think last year there was a report for 22% of the income in banking institutions was based on the bank charges. So you find the RBZ is also trying, by maintaining those high rates, they're also trying to keep the banking institutions or the financial institutions viable in the economy, so hence the maintenance. But also as an effort to also address individuals or even those in the informal sector, they have come up with strategies such as now if you make a payment less than $5 or less in USD or equivalent, you're no longer being charged you're no longer being charged any bank charges. So you find that they're trying to also strike a balance between keeping the banking sector viable and also the informal sector, or us as individuals, to continue also being able to use the proper channels when making transactions or making payments.
The elephant in the room, de-dollarization, Mugoe.
Sure. Okay. De-dollarization. It's very difficult to get out of it. Why? It affects the overall confidence of the market. Economic agents no longer trust whether the fiscal authorities or the monetary authorities. So, look, when we de-dollarize,
you already established that.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, there's been conversation from fiscal monetary authorities. The IMF has even said, let there be a clear, the transparent de-dollarization route.
Yes.
What should frame that de-dollarization route?
all right. What led to it? What led to the dollarization should be first corrected. The fundamentals should be put in place. The macroeconomic fundamentals should first be put in place, because we can de-dollarize, have new currency, and then when we have our new currency, then the economic agents have no confidence in the currency. The economic agents are not believing the monetary authorities. They are now used to the US dollar as a store of value, as a savable money. And then we have the local currency coming in. And then with the local currency coming in now, the only chance it gives us sovereignty.
Transparency, a clear transparency where the RBZ or the monetary system, they clearly show us how we are going to manage it. I know they're waiting by 2030. So I think there should be transparency. Transparency will help build back confidence from the business people and also from consumers. It also help in building enough time for currency stability, where as they have reported adoptability of the ZIG, but I think adoptability not in terms of transaction only, but also in terms of investments, in terms of a store of value.
Right, Mugove Chinyere, an economist, and Natasha Mutasa, a financial analyst. Thank you for appearing on The Mint.